Hello, friends. For the first time in 2026, the Sons of UCF Live are back, an impromptu Sons of UCF Live. I'm Adam. That is Trace Trucco with me as always. And of course, we're here because it's Happy Portal Day. Trace Trucco, Happy Portal Day to you and yours.
And Happy New Year, Adam. I logged into social media at midnight following that Georgia Ole Miss game, and I thought everybody would sign and announce it, but seemingly nothing happened. I thought we'd know a quarterback for UCF right around midnight, and nothing happened.
Nothing yet. There's things here and there and everywhere, and that's why we thought we'd get the band back together here, Trace, to a kind of an impromptu Sons of UCF Live. Here's the agenda. We'll kind of talk about what we know up until this minute. Things are changing by the second. I'm refreshing Twitter as we're talking here, so if something changes, we will let you know. So who's staying, who's leaving? We think we know that already. Who's visiting? Who's out there on the big board, Trace? A lot of questions to be asked. But let me just ask you this: Are you getting more adaptive to the transfer portal? Are you getting used to this now? Is it becoming okay for you? Or are you still a little bit discomforted with what you're seeing in the transfer portal?
I'm struggling with it, to be honest with you. I don't like it. And how can I love the sport of college football, love UCF athletics, and struggle with this part of it? When you asked me, you'll acknowledge this. When you asked me, do you want to be a part of this 4:00 show? I didn't immediately respond to you.
No,
because
you didn't.
I wasn't sure. I was ready to come off holiday, as it were, and discuss all of this. It does bother me that this is the state of play in athletics. And we see this term adapt or die, get used to it, or, move on to something else, I guess I have to wrestle with. For now, I'm still a part of the band, but I don't like this aspect of it, player acquisition. I've gotten used to it with the pro teams that I follow and watching Orlando City establish its roster ahead of the MLS season and what the Cubs going to do as spring training approaches. But I just haven't gotten around to really embracing this aspect of college athletics. It's not going away. It's likely to just get more complex and worse.
Yeah, probably not going anywhere. And so let's orient everybody, if you're not familiar, on January 2nd, Friday morning, the transfer portal opens. You can now enter your name officially into the portal. Schools can now contact players in the portal and begin setting up visits and all that such. That ends on January 16th. So you've got a 2-week sprint here if you're a team to get to the portal and try to fill any holes that you have. Obviously, you can enter up until the 16th of the portal, I suppose, but probably not wise to do. UCF starts classes January 12th. So one would think that you'd have to be enrolled by probably the end of that first week, Trace. The ad drop period is probably where you need to be enrolled. So UCF has a little bit of time here left, probably about a week to 10 days to try to figure out what this 2025 roster looks like. A lot of decisions to be made. A lot of things have to happen, Trace. Luckily, you and I don't have to carry this show alone, because I found somebody who's smarter about all the stuff than both of us. That's Andrew Cherico. You may know him from Nights 24/7. You know him, obviously, from his time here at Sons of UCF, doing a great job tracking all things transfer portal. Andrew, my friend, first off, Happy New Year, buddy. How you doing?
Happy New Year, guys. Could be better. Running low on sleep.
Okay.
It's just day one. You can't be running low on anything. You be energized.
No, I'm just joking, guys. Happy New Year. Happy to be on. Crazy times at UCF. First go around with the portal. My time with Nights 24/7. So navigating the waters, getting some info here and there, and seeing what I can share.
There's a lot to get to.
What is your process for this? How are you keeping track of what's going on as you navigate this? I mean, we're all sort of navigating this new window here together. What's your process and how you establish hot boards and who you're tracking? What does that look like on your end?
All right, so yeah, there's two different things I've done leading up to this period. One of them is the hot boards. Basically, with that, I'm scavenging the thousands of players currently entering the portal, looking for people who have connections or ties to the local Orlando area, maybe from Central Florida, maybe was previously recruited by the Knights and with prior coaching staffs. And then for the current transfer portal right now, just keep an eye out with national reporters. I have people like Tom Lloyd, 24/7, Brian Doan, Alan Trieu texting me and giving me a heads up on what players might be visiting. And then texting players myself, texting their agents, trying to stay updated, and then trying to see who's visiting. That's the big one right now. For a lot of these people who you're going to see signing with the Knights, they're likely going to be on visits in the next week or two, including this weekend. We have a couple players who have already announced. And a couple players who've announced have gotten offers already from the D2 level. So I think it's just a lot going on right now, just trying to stay as organized as I can, updating the message board, updating the hot boards and everything.
What I heard there is Andrew has unlimited data on his cell phone, which is probably going to be useful at this particular time. Here's the rundown. We'll go through a bunch of different things we have here, Andrew. Coming, going, visiting, all that stuff, hot board. But if you have questions, get them into the chat. We'll save some time at the end. We'll pop some questions on screen. We'll do our best to answer what we know. And this is going to be a show where we're not going to be scared to say we don't know something right now, because there's a lot of unknowns. I know a lot of folks are taking guesses and taking wild swings at what may be happening. If we don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know that thing, because I don't think there's a lot of news that's out there right now. I think UCF purposefully being tight-lipped, which is probably the right approach to take in these times, Andrew. But it's the new year. Let's start off positively. Let's start with some good news, Andrew. Who's staying at UCF? So who do we know right now that we know will be back on this UCF team so far in 2026? What are the names we need to know?
All right. So I think one of the most important ones, in my opinion, was Wade and Charles, who announced early into the offseason that he would be staying with the Knights. Another player is Dwayne Thomas Jr. And then we had two today, Damari Henderson, which was a bit of a iffy situation because, his brother Jakari entered the portal, and now they're both represented by the same agency. So we thought there could have been maybe a package deal going out, but I think Damari's production was so good this year that UCF needed to find a way to bring him back. And I think Jakari now is just going to look for a better situation to get some time on the field. Another player who was brought back today, or announced his return today, was tight end Dylan Wade. He had a historic season as a tight end in the program for UCF, some of the most receiving yards, I believe, ever, if not first or second. So I just think it was those are a couple of the guys that come right to my mind. So as a player, another one, Tavion Swint, a running back. He had a graphic posted not too long ago. I think that's important. UCF lost some running back depth in this portal. So I think it's important that you keep guys like that around. I think a good thing we're seeing is a lot of the offensive playmakers are here for the Knights. So that's something that they need to continue to build on, because we know the offense was something that needed to be heavily improved going on to this season. And now the defensive side, what you see in the opposite side is that defense is losing a lot of their depth. I'm not going to say like a lot of the main guys. So two of the main guys were Horace Alaka Jr., John Walker, but now they're going to, I think, recruiting defensive depth and offensive playmakers are two major factors in this portal class.
Trace, of the players coming back, who sticks out to you? Who's a name that you're glad to see will be back in black and gold in 2026?
Dylan Wade. That was an announcement. You wanted to see him back. I had to laugh. I chuckled a little bit when Andrew said playmakers on offense. There were so few, right? It's the playmakers on defense and that depth that Andrew mentioned a moment ago that have looked like they're heading to the portal or are already announced that they're in. That is more concerning. But Dylan Wade would be the one that I'm glad is back. There are a couple, I know that's going to be a topic coming up, a couple you hate to see leave on defense, mainly from a depth standpoint. That's what's most concerning for me on the defensive side of the ball.
A couple things to point out with the who's staying stuff. UCF not formally releasing anything, right? So, Andrew, these are coming from players themselves, from their agencies, correct? So, yeah. If anyone's looking for specific, UCF graphics per se, those aren't being released, which means there may be more guys staying that we just don't know about yet because, again, there's no official release, Andrew. But correct me if I'm wrong, all of the staying graphics, if you will, are coming from the players themselves?
Yeah, there are players themselves and that like videos. Like it doesn't even say like on back or anything, but it's just posting like highlight videos of them in a Knights uniform. Maybe the agencies are posting graphics saying they're back or they're staying another year with UCF. Also wanted to follow up. I got my article up on Knights 24/7. 3 more guys staying. Caden Peening, tight end, freshman. I think Coach Frost is high on him, and I think him and Dylan Wade can be a solid duo. Connor Meadows, offensive line. I know somebody mentioned it in the chat. And lastly, I had Justin Roy as offensive line as well, who has actually been really active on social media, reposting a lot of players who've been in and out of the portal for the Knights. But yeah, a lot of the players themselves are posting their return, and that's kind of what it is with the agencies. A lot of the UCF staff, I think, is being tight-lipped about this for maybe deal negotiation benefits or maybe trying to keep things low-key from the media and allow them room to breathe. So not everybody's up looking what they're doing next. But yeah, it's a lot of the players posting the returns, and I'm trying to keep an eye out for see who else is going to be posting.
Andrew, a question for you. What's your experience been like in communication and messaging with these agents? I mean, I imagine this is a wide range of quote unquote agents. There's probably some family members involved here, right? The experience level in this term agents has got to be varied.
Yeah, Trace, this is a field that's brand new to me. You guys know I was brought on by Latavius Murray's Knights 24/7 just like 5 to 6 months ago now, in July. So this has all been new to me. This is something I never really had done before. But my experience of it has turned up, I would say, the past month. Speaking of representatives, agents, speaking of family members, this is all what I would say. It's just transactional business. I hate to put it like that, but it is. Agents want to feed out their information to the top journalists and people in the community to get their player more publicity, and the players are benefiting from it, are getting publicity. So it's just trying to see who you can text, get the latest scoop from, because in reality, what one agent tells somebody is what everybody else is going to hear in the next 5 seconds. All it takes is a quick text, because they want as much publicity for their player as they can. They want to spotlight their player. Obviously, that is their job, to represent them and put them in the best light possible. For me personally, it's just a lot of numbers on my phone that I don't have the contact saved for. So when I'm going back through the contact list, I'm like, who does this guy even represent? I don't know who this is anymore. It's just some guys are worth numbers are worth keeping more than others. But it's definitely a business of where just trying to send a couple messages, see how they're feeling, and trying to get the latest scoop for you guys.
Adam, there's a slushiness to this agents thing, right? Simon Plume, who used to head the Kingdom, is now in the agent business, as is Jeff Love, who was the director of player personnel at UCF until a short while ago. It's a little slushy there, this transition from being on the inside to now representing players that are still on these teams.
Yeah, those are two separate animals to answer. I think there's been a lot of conversation. There isn't a certification process to be an agent right now in the college football game. Obviously, many other professional sports have that certification process. That's not in place for college athletes. And I think it's important. I mean, agents are going to be in ears of their players, telling them things. I think players have to have a discerning ear to what's happening and what they want to do and what's out there. I'll give kudos to a tweet today, Trace. I saw you retweeted as well, from former Kingdom leader SJ Tui, who talked about, making smart decisions and is this, financially something that is life changing or just lifestyle changing for you. And I think some really good advice is available out there. But it's a wild time because, again, anybody can represent anybody, and so I certainly think there's some wildness there. And Andrew, I was going to have some fun with you. You did a great job of telling us who's staying. I was going to ask you off the top of your head to tell us who's leaving, but I thought we might be here too long. So instead, I made a graphic. So here are the guys that we know. I did that for you. Here are the guys that we know have announced that they are entering the portal, or their names have actually entered the portal. I believe this is accurate as of about 20 minutes ago. So if somebody entered in the last 20 minutes, please accept my humblest apologies that they're not on this graphic. But Trace, as you see the names on this graphic, what stands out to you? Any name in particular, any position group? What kind of calls to you as you look at the growing list of UCF Knights that are now in the transfer portal?
Could I make a request that it roll and it have that old Benny Hill TV show music? The main one, right, is John Walker, and of late Horace Lockett, and I just think it's the dent in the depth. Now you have a lot of people, not including the seniors that have graduated and moved on, that you have to replace. And I know a lot of these decisions are UCF calls. In conversations with UCF officials, we knew that there was going to be more turnover in the roster. I know that number that we attached ourselves to last year, somewhere between, 60, 70 players, it is not anticipated to be that high, but there's going to be a lot more turnover. UCF already amongst the leaders in the country and certainly in the Big 12 in turnover, but a lot of these are decisions that UCF is making as well. I'd rather have a John Walker back, but you want a John Walker back at the right price. You want a Horace Lockett back at the right price. And it is interesting, though, that when Walker went in, it seemed to tip the dominoes over, that some other people wanted to test their value in the market. And I think we're going to find, and you see this with the portal already, not everybody's going to land somewhere, and certainly not everybody, to SJ Tui's point, is going to land at the value that they think they have. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Over the holidays, Adam and Andrew, I rewatched, it's been a while, I watched Moneyball. We've been talking about it so much just to familiarize myself with that movie. We've talked about UCF needing to retain players, how they were going to do with that high school class, and now we're in the thick of this over the next 2 weeks. This is where UCF is really going to prove its mettle and how well it recruits players out of the portal, inks deals, and what kind of roster it's building for 2026.
Is it too dramatic to say that this is the most important transfer portal cycle in the history of the program?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we can dramatically say that every year.
I know, but just in terms of the stakes, and is UCF going to be able to finally find their footing at the Big 12? Because Coach Frost going to have a bounce back year for his second year back. Everybody was calling it year zero. I keep thinking year one, but is he going to have a bounce back year for a second year back? Or are they going to get back to a positive record? We know what the defense did last year, and I think it's evident to see that. I think Coach Frost may want to bolster up the offense a bit more than people have seen, because of a lot of these defensive exits, you have to think some of those finances are going elsewhere. That's just how I view it from a outside looking in perspective.
Andrew, a new name that popped up last week that you and I didn't get a chance to talk about was Horace Lockett, a player who I think a lot of folks thought was coming back. There were some tweets out there that if you wanted to read him a certain way could indicate he was potentially coming back, and then hits the portal. I know, Andrew, you were doing some kind of digging around. What's your sense of Horace Lockett and his decision to enter the portal?
Yeah, and if you remember at the beginning of the season, I was big on Horace Lockett. I thought watching him in spring and fall camp, I thought he was just a monster up the middle. No run was getting by him. I thought he was chewing up the entire line. Him and John Walker were a great duo to begin the year. Really impressed to see what the D-line did after they lost him due to injury. But for Horace, I think it's just him looking for an opportunity and maybe looking for a bigger pay raise as well. These situations, I wasn't able to find too much on his situation, but it's one or two things in this portal. It's either they're looking for an opportunity to get on the field or they're looking for an opportunity to get a bigger payday. And that's what the transfer portal has become. A lot of these players, can't forget, a lot of these players are helped out, but I wouldn't imagine Horace Lockett is one of the guys being told by UCF to look for a new home. I could imagine UCF was hopeful of keeping a guy like Horace. What really I'm still hesitant on is that he missed majority, 2/3 of the season. He had really solid 3 games. 2 of those were against Jacksonville State and North Carolina A&T. We didn't really see much after that. I'm curious to see what his market may be. I still think because of his attribute and his physical prowess, he could gather a market. But in terms of stats and the competition that he went against, it wasn't nothing too talented to see that he would be among the best in the Big 12 or another conference if he was to play there. Wishing the best for Horace, but it's one of those things in the transfer portal. A lot of these guys, they bet on themselves, and the grass isn't always greener. Hopefully it's not that, or maybe UCF is keeping an eye out for a guy like Horace or keeping an eye out for a guy like Derek LeBlanc, who I would say should be priorities to see if they would withdraw from the portal. I think these are guys that they want to bolster back up their defensive line depth. These are guys who they want to keep, but defensive line, it's a evaluation market that, you only need to hit on a couple guys and have the other guys for depth. You need to have the right fit. You talk about size, speed on the outside, size on the inside. Maybe they just thought maybe the asking price that he was asking for. This is all speculation. I don't know anything. I have to repeat that. Wasn't what UCF valued him at. So maybe that's what caused an exit to the portal. I'd definitely try to get more information on that, though.
I blame Lee Hunter, guys. Lee Hunter wanted a lot of money, left for a lot of money, had a pretty successful year. And I think that's inflated dollar signs in a lot of guys' eyes that they think they could be the next Lee Hunter, commanding, multi-million-dollar contracts out there.
Guys, hate to interrupt. I hate to interrupt. This is big. I'm constantly looking to the side, updating stuff. I just got a text. Jaden Bellamy is staying. He is guaranteed staying. Just got a text from inside.
Do you know from who, or is it just a number?
You guys ready for this one? Jaden Bellamy. That is
Jaden Bellamy. He can confirm his own report. I like when Jaden Bellamy can confirm his own report.
That's what I'm a fan of. Shout out Jaden Bellamy. That's huge. See,
do you have to post that somewhere now?
Do we need to
broken live on Sons of UCF live. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're here for. Excuse me when you see me.
Stay on for the next 2 weeks.
Let's just stay right here, Andrew. We'll get some dinner later.
When you see me looking to the side, I'm taking texts and getting messages. I'm here. I'm active. That's breaking news right there. There you go.
Trace, I'm curious your thoughts on MD Knight, who's in the chat, that DTs are going to find their own evaluations don't match the market. I thought it was interesting that you said it earlier. John Walker leaves. You would think that opens up playing time for some of the other guys, maybe who were on that too deep or on that fringe too deep, but yet a lot of those same guys go in the portal. What do you kind of make of this valuation game where there's no true valuation? Everyone's kind of making it up as they go. They're hearing numbers everywhere. How does this get settled if you're a school like UCF, and how do you continue to try to essentially bid against yourselves in some cases while the market is very fluid and there's no real set standard out there?
Well, I'm not comparing Lee Hunter to these other guys. The Lee Hunter was in a class all his own, but I think that he paves the way for guys thinking that they're worth something, and some of them are gonna get those dollars, and some schools are gonna overpay for guys to amass talent and keep it away from a UCF, and that's back to Moneyball, where UCF's gonna have to be smart with its resources. Unless I missed it over the holidays, UCF's version of Cody Campbell has not surfaced and made his or her name known. So UCF's still working with that structure. It is very challenging for UCF. They're going to work within the confines and the dollar values. And I know Andrew has put together something from sources within 24/7 that gives you a range of values. There are a couple of writers out there, Andrew, that have posted some range, and UCF's got to work within its budget. Yes. It makes it for a challenging time. I'm curious, Andrew, is this a process where, you're hearing from a Jaden Bellamy, you're hearing from some other guys, but in terms of inking players, and I joke about it being midnight and waiting to see players make announcements, when do you expect to hear from players over this 2-week period of time?
I think we start hearing, as we just saw, as early as right now. I feel like a lot of these guys want to let it be known their intentions are staying with UCF, and a lot of these guys want to build a legacy with the Knights. In terms of
we thought that of Horace Lockett, though, too, didn't we? Didn't we, from social media, expect that he would be someone staying?
Yeah, no, and that's something that I think is such a because like 1 week you hear something and the guys, maybe players are working towards the right price. Then next week something falls through, or a new player enters the portal that UCF might set their eyes on, or another team reaches out to Horace's agent like, hey, I don't know what you guys are talking about with UCF, but I want to offer you this. And that's, I know tampering technically, if I'm not wrong,
it's not happening.
Tampering? What?
No such thing. If I'm not wrong, players aren't allowed to speak with the schools, but the agents are, and that's where the middleman is, and that's where it's all happening. So a lot of these players are, I think a big part of it too, like you mentioned, Trace. I hate to put it like this, but Lee Hunter, seeing other players enter the portal and reach a price, I'm like, hey, like I'm just as good as that guy, or I did as much as that. I want to get my price raised just as his was. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. But yeah, that's where I think a lot of these players.
I think there's a lot lost in that Lee Hunter stuff. For those who remember last year, he actually tweeted he was coming back to UCF. And then very, very late in the game went to Texas Tech. I do think that's probably a situation, Andrew, to your point, where an agent reached out and said, hey, if you get in the portal, here's kind of what your valuation is. And I think that's the challenge right now is this is all funny money, right? This is all people giving you facts and figures. And I know there's reports out there. Some schools are offering dollar figures that are meant to be inflated in nature to get someone to go to the portal. And then those offers don't materialize to kind of, if you don't help your school, you hurt another school, right? So there's just a lot going on and off of the field. Trace, you talked a little bit about where UCF's at, where they need to go. Let's talk a little bit about position groups UCF needs to target. I'll throw the graphic in a second that equates the dollar figures attached to these position groups, Trace. But now that you kind of know who's in the portal, at least as of 4:24 Eastern on Friday, where do you think UCF needs to set their compass in terms of trying to acquire talent from the portal?
I've been adamant about this with Eric Lopez and Around the Kingdom, and we have differed in this opinion. I still think you have to have a stronger offensive line. I am not dismissing the need for a quarterback. Hey, where's Rocco Beck? Is he signed yet, Andrew?
Yes. Oh, excuse me.
Is Rocco Beck tonight yet?
He's not a Knight.
I don't think that's happening. I'm not going to lie.
Can officially confirm Rocco Beck not a Knight.
I think if I remember a Trace tweet, he said Rocco Beck or bust or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that a thing?
I bought into it for 48 hours. I bought into the hype. I think they got to be strong along the offensive line and defensive line, and those are premium positions. They're going to be costly. But what was the rumored number for the defensive line for Texas Tech? Some $7 million, right? On a roster that may have been worth some $28 million. You've seen these reports of in Indiana. What are they? Upwards of 60 million? Is that the number? 40 to 60 million dollars in that range. Offensive line. I think they got to get quarterback right, and I think that opens up an interesting conversation too, Adam, about quarterback. You've got the two young guys in there. Do you have a bridge quarterback, or do you go all in on a big name? It doesn't seem like UCF can afford a big name. So what do you do there at quarterback? Does Cam Fancher come back? Is he part of the mix? Are you comfortable with him being in a second spot? I think those are some interesting conversations. They got to get quarterback right, but they got to have the right line. And seems like UCF now, with the departures on the defensive side of the ball, there are some needs there as well.
Well, it's fun to play fantasy football with your college football team, Trace. But when you attach the dollar figures to it, these come courtesy of Andrew and 24/7 Sports, kind of a low, average, and high range by position. And Trace, you're talking offensive line. If you need, and let's just say in this case, UCF needs 3 to 4 offensive linemen. Let's just as a round number, and they're on an average offensive lineman. And again, the positioning of this is obviously subjective, right? I mean, that's $500K for linemen, right? That's $2 million alone right there on linemen. So it's easy to talk about, let's play fantasy football. Let's attract all these guys. But here the valuation charts. I'm curious, Andrew, obviously this is something I know you were reporting on it in 24/7. What do you make of these figures specifically? Are there, and are you hearing these as kind of the accurate numbers as you're talking to agents and players and other national media?
These are really accurate. Yeah, I think you can see here, obviously, the premium position, quarterback, and then you get up to the D-line, and you see the high salary ranges for D-line and then receiver as well. These 4 positions, including maybe safety, depends. D-line, receiver, quarterback are often making into the million for the top-tier players. So you think a guy like Rocco Beck, he's going to make within the 2 to 3 million range for sure, if not even more. These are just some numbers that I think are accurate of the times that UCF and all of college football is dealing with. And you think about the schools that have the extra revenue money, you think about the schools who don't. Now this really puts it into perspective how these teams are budgeting their finances and trying to put the best field the best team that they can. When you have players like you think that are in the low range and they think they're in the high range, that's when maybe UCF and the players are not seeing eye to eye. And that's what can cause a disagreement in them to enter the portal. That's all based off of stats, production, value, how many years you have left. I think a guy who performed really highly with 2 years left is more valuable than a guy who performed highly with just 1 year left, because you have that guy, you can potentially keep him for another season. So this is just a big mix of all the probable ranges of players available. But I think this is really accurate. And it kind of puts it in perspective for the Knights. And you kind of look at the roster and see who are the must-keep guys. Then you think about the must-keep guys. You automatically put those guys in the average to high range, right? Because they're going to be must-keep if they were making low money. And now you think, okay, now how much money has that been for UCF approximately? How much more do they have to vary out to fill out the depth of a 105-man roster?
Trace, which of these
more
numbers,
money than what UCF has?
Trace, which of these numbers stick out to you the most? Where's the dollar value that you go, man, I can't believe we're here for that position?
Well, I think when fans lament KJ Jefferson and Tavian Jackson, it's because they're in that low range of quarterback dollars, right? So, you go back to this early signing day class that UCF inked, 13 guys, Rocco Marriott, the quarterback, in the mix there as well. You want to see them develop some talent, right? Or you're going to have to spend a lot of money in the portal, a lot of money that they don't have. I think you broke it up. I think there was a question in the comments in the chat was, Adam, how would you assess where UCF is after early signing day and retention of players? Still some flux on the retention of players before they even get to the acquisition stage. A lot of money to do this. And, fan base is not going to be content with whether we call it year 0 or year 1. There needs to be progress UCF needs to make. And I'm wondering, Adam, who do you think UCF most regrets losing if that's in fact a loss? Do you think they stand by that a Horace Lockett was worth X and we're not going to overpay? We're not going to overpay for anybody. This is what we've assigned the value because we have to work within our salary cap. Who do you think they regret losing if they do in fact lose all of the guys that you showed on the list earlier?
Well, that's a fair question. I guess the answer lies in which tier was UCF thinking this player was in, and which tier did that player think they were in, right? I think about a Stacey Gage, a player who didn't get a ton of run, redshirted 1 year, injured last year. At a low valuation, he makes a ton of sense for UCF. But does he think he's valued at that level? Does he think there's more money out there? Does he think that there's a bigger payday ahead? That's the part we don't know. I think the one thing I would say is, whether you agree with UCF's planning or not, I think it's very clear based on what you're seeing and what we're hearing, which, again, to Andrew's point, is very little right now. UCF is paying and prioritizing production over potential. And they want guys who have played snaps, who have taken reps, and that's what they want to pay for. They don't necessarily want to break the bank for potential. So I do think, whether you agree with that strategy as a person, whether you think that's the right play, whether you think UCF will end up on the short end of the stick and they can't compete like that, I think it's clear right now, Trace, UCF is looking more for production than potential. Having said all that, I do think the defensive line exodus is certainly an area to look at. I don't know if any one guy was going to make that line, appreciably better or worse, but as a collective, losing all the depth you lost, now you've essentially got to go back and find new depth, get them back into your system, back into your scheme, basically start all over again. I do think that's an area where I'm curious if UCF kind of knew now everybody who was leaving, if they would have changed the valuation on a couple of those guys and just kept them around from a depth perspective.
That's an interesting question. And a year ago, right, everybody's saying, is Alex Grinch the right hire? And now you say, well, Alex Grinch can piece everything back together again. That may not be as easy to do as to say. He had some returning talent to work with. But a Jaden Bellamy is a good example of somebody that you can find out of the portal, that you can develop, and then perhaps inks at a higher value. Here's a question I have for you. It's from one standpoint of the roster and the team and coaches, the teams, the players, but the fan base as well. When some of these guys find out their values aren't there and they tail between the legs, come back and say, is there a spot for me on the roster? Do you accept them back if they are willing to play at the value that UCF had assigned to them to begin with, perhaps?
I think it all depends on how that relationship ends, right? If it ends amicably, if it ends, hey, we're going to go test the waters. But if it gets contentious, if it gets a little bit, unprofessional, perhaps with some of the agents that may be out there, I think it matters how you leave the situation. I do think UCF, if that money's still available, and that's the gamble, Trace. If I say, hey, UCF offered me, $100,000 for a round number, and I think I can get two, and I go out there and try to get two, well, UCF spent my one. Now that's not there for me anymore, right? So that's the gamble that you're taking as a player, saying, do you take this now? Do you not? I think the funny thing about all this, though, is there's no transparency. So we'll never know what some of these guys got in the open market, right? They may have told UCF, I can get this number, and they go out and they sign with a school. We don't always know if they got that number or not, too. So I think it depends how quickly they make this decision. But I also do think it's relationship based. How do you end? How do you part ways? And do you still leave opportunity for the door to kind of stay open there? So, but Andrew, I'm curious from your standpoint, which position groups are you thinking UCF needs to kind of go after? I know you've got some early insight on some folks maybe slated to visit UCF, some kids tweeting out offers to UCF. What can you tell us so far, at least on what we've heard? And what is this, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours in right now on what maybe UCF's targeting, or where the thought lies in terms of who may come in for UCF?
Yeah, so I really quickly wanted to touch up on the point that you were just hitting on, Adam. And all of the things I think you didn't mention was that if you're looking at a group like the defensive line for UCF, a guy leaves and then he says, okay, I want to come back. UCF may have already gotten 2 guys to fill up that gap. Now, UCF may be like, okay, we can bring you back just for even less maybe than we offered you initially. So sometimes these guys may be coming back to schools making less money because they thought the grass was greener. From my Latavius Murray's Nights 24/7 mega thread, I have a couple players here.
Sponsored by. You need a sponsor for that, Andrew, by the way.
Yeah, mega. I have a couple players here visiting. We have from Louisiana Tech, all-conference linebacker Makai Mason. He posted 68 tackles, solo tackles last season, 14.5 tackles for a loss, and 3 sacks. He's scheduled for a visit for UCF amongst Kansas State, North Carolina State, Michigan State, and TCU. Continuing to go through the list, South Dakota State safety Jalen Lee is scheduled to visit UCF January 3rd through the 4th. He had the 44th best overall grade among Division I safeties, both FCS and FBS included. had 63 tackles and 3 interceptions. And then there was another player today who visited. I've been in contact with him. Kamel Johnson, defensive back, had 37 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 9 pass breakups with Wayne State last season. He's originally from Jacksonville, Florida. Going through more of the list, Harvard safety. This one got some traction on Twitter. Ty Bartram has visits with Boston College and UCF. Bartram finished with 83 tackles last season, 1 interception, and 3 pass breakups. Those are just a few of the names. I'm getting a lot more. Okay, I got one more here. Michigan State offensive line transfer Cooper. That's a rough name. Cooper Tripstra. Cooper Tripstra is visiting from Michigan State this weekend. That's per Nice 24/7 Alan Treyu. Not Nice 24/7, 24/7 Sports Alan Treyu, who is posting that on the board. Just a lot of names that are being scheduled to visit UCF right now. A couple of guys have been offered by the Knights. Another guy who got offered was Keon Washington. Excuse me. He got an offer from UCF. Had 37 tackles and a sack last season with Bowling Green. So those are just a couple of the guys. These are D2. That's a D2 guy, amongst others that are getting offers because they've been in the portal for a while, and now you're going to see a lot of the Division I guys start to get their offers as the portal continues to open up.
Trace, the old Harvard to UCF pipeline. What do you make? What do you make of that?
Well, if it worked as well as the Colgate to UCF pipeline worked a season ago, that is certainly interesting. Do we buy into the brand names here? Or there are diamonds in the rough everywhere. This is where UCF just has to be smart. How much of an impact? I don't think you mentioned it. I know it's news today. J.R.S. McIntyre, director of high school relations, reported to be leaving to join Alex Kolesh's staff at Auburn. That with Jeff Love's departure. Those are two, though, that at this point you really don't want that sort of changeover at this point in the calendar.
Yeah, I think it's got to be all hands on deck, right? Because there's so many players to evaluate. There's so many positions of need. Anybody in that football office that has the ability to scout and to be part of that recruiting process, I think you want all those hands on deck. And so losing 2 guys right in the midst of that certainly is not optimal, right? Because are those 2 less guys that can watch film, that can reach out and make contacts with people, that can get in touch with agents, right? So I do think just from a sheer strength and number standpoint, losing those guys is tough. But B, the relationships obviously are big as well. J.R.S. McIntyre big in the West Tampa area, right? So having some connections that you lose there, I do think is a tough one. MD Knight's got a good point. We had like 7 of those guys with the same title, so perhaps the other 5 of those guys now are doing the work as 7. Maybe I should say people. I don't want to assume they're guys, but it certainly isn't great, Trace, to see that level of turnover right here in sort of the peak time where you need all hands on deck.
And then the coaching staff has remained relatively intact, right? So that helps you bridge over when you lose some personnel type folks. You used the word earlier, Adam, transparency, and the lack of it. And I don't know how much we're ever going to get of it, but I think it's interesting. Trent Mossbrucker, the general manager, has been on the job for closing in on a year, right? And no public comments from him, no media availability. And that is something I have asked UCF Sports Information. After this process settles, I think Trent Mossbrucker, as the general manager, should come before the cameras and the media and answer some questions about the process and shed as much light on it as possible. I will say you do see quotes from other general managers at other programs across the country out there. So other people are more accessible to the cameras and to the media. I think it would help you sell your program to your fan base, which I think is still something that UCF needs to be focused on.
Look, I think everyone's wondering who Andrew's texting now. We have bets now going on who Andrew Jericho is talking to on the phone. Look, I think it's a dramatic shift from the last regime, right? The last regime was booms. It was a lot of conversation. I think you two know better than anybody, and I know there's a lot of folks out there. This football department right now is very tight-lipped. I don't think a lot of information is getting out of that department. I think Andrew can speak to this better than I can. What you're hearing is from agents. You're hearing it from other schools. You're hearing it from somebody who heard from somebody else. But this is a dramatic shift in the way UCF's operating. And again, we might as well call this the MD Night Show because he's got another great comment here. I kind of like not hearing from my GM, right? And I understand the bigger picture. What you're saying, Trace, is let's lay out a vision. But I do think it's different that this staff, this department, they're not operating with the booms and the Sandhill cranes and all that other flashy stuff. They're
You
kind
better
of
be
doing it
right.
behind the scenes. That's the problem. You better nail this strategy then, because you're kind of closing up ranks here, and you better hope that you have the ability to hit on some of these things too. Andrew, what's going on the phone? Anything big there? Anything you want to update us on?
Just texting reporters, refreshing. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. I feel like Adam Schefter right now. This is one of those things where he's on the live show. He has to take a quick second to take a call, come back in.
No, do you think?
No, but kind of just hitting on the topics you guys were talking about. I think UCF is being tight-lipped for a reason, like Adam said. It's evident they don't want to expose too much of their plan. But I do like Trace, the thought of maybe speaking with the GM. We know that I've been in contact with plenty of people inside UCF and it really hasn't been much communication. So it's more of trying to see from the agent what's going on the outside. I think for the transfer portal opening up, it's a lot of player representation that's leading the news. And that's what you see with a lot of the national websites, reporters from 24/7, On3, Rivals. It says this guy is staying per his representative. This guy is staying per his agent. His agent tells me, it's not the source tells me. They're quite literally posting the agent's social media handle in their announcement posts. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that point MD Knight's making. I agree. I think as tight-lipped as UCF wants to be is fine, but we try to balance being, in the case of Adam and I, alums and Andrew, a current student, with trying to cover the program. And from a covering the program standpoint, you want more access. You want to be able to ask questions. From a tight-lipped standpoint, do all you're doing behind the scenes, but prove it in the fall. Land the right roster. I do think, though, there's some salesmanship, and you use the word vision there, that also come as part of this. We go back a month to Scott Frost's early signing day presser, which went off the rails. Not that he was saying anything that wasn't accurate, wasn't candid. I think he's been pretty candid, say, Coach. But you got to sell a vision. You got to excite the fan base about the 13 new recruits. And when you're so tight-lipped about everything, then you're left to judge by, well, okay, is a Harvard guy a good guy that you want on your roster? Is it going to translate into more than 5 and 7 in the fall? There is a needle that has to be threaded there, and that's why when fans get excited and latch on for 48 hours that the new head coach of the Orlando Storm, the UFL, is Anthony Beck and his son is Rocco Beck. Well, Rocco could be coming to UCF. You get excited about those things when you're left to fill in the blanks in the Mad Libs.
Yeah, I would say, speaking on we're speaking about the brand of the schools. Let's take two examples. We had DJ Black, right? He was, all respect to DJ Black, by the way, but he was prompted as wide receiver one of his team, number one outside receiver, fastest player on the team. We never really saw his potential on the field. We had a couple breakout plays. He had one really long catch. I believe that was from Jakari Brown when Taven Jackson went down, took it for a touchdown. But you have a player like that who came from Limestone, a school that's shut down. And then you have other players like Dwayne Thomas, who came from a smaller school, if I'm not mistaken. and he comes in, performs from at a wide receiver one level and is back with the team as the wide receiver one slot, as number one slot receiver, as the most receiving yards on the team from the previous season with 500 plus yards. He was a jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife, however you want to put it. Was in the backfield, wide receiver. So it's kind of hit or miss, and I think it's just all down to talent evaluation. I think it was best put by Brian Doan when you guys had him on Sons of UCF Live. Player rankings and player stars, they mean something to a certain extent of their NFL potential and what they can be. But if we're talking about pure system fit in a college program, stars are really irrelevant. I mean, of course you want a 3-star, 4, those guys are nice because those guys are very talented. But we've seen plenty of players in the history of college football who haven't even been ranked be NFL Hall of Famers, and this is just comes down to the talent evaluation and finding the right system fit. A guy like Dwayne Thomas Jr. is a perfect system fit for Coach Frost. And a guy, even talking about Jaden Bellamy, who didn't get the opportunity to shine as much in Syracuse, he comes to UCF, cornerback one of the best cornerbacks in college football, among the best in the Big 12. you just give it those right opportunities to those players looking for a chance. And it's all about system fit. These players are talented. They've been playing football and practicing their entire life. It's just about being in the right situation, I think.
A new offer per MD Night, ESPN Lamproni. Yes, that is his name. I've seen that name as well. That is his actual name. But Andrew, let's have some fun. Let's make Trace uncomfortable here. Let's play speculation time. Who's coming to UCF, Andrew? Who we got? Who's on the hot board? So apparently Rocco Beck didn't work out. So all those podcasts I saw with him on the cover, I can just disregard those. But who is coming to UCF, Andrew? Who is on the hot board? Who are some names that you're kind of keeping an eye on and monitoring as potential targets for UCF?
So you want to talk quarterbacks or what? What do we feel?
Start with quarterbacks.
Okay. One guy, there's a couple of names being thrown out there. Well, one thing I can say that's been confirmed is, speaking with Adam about this, Pribula, he is not confirmed or anything for UCF, nor has a visit been named. But Drew, I'm blanking on the last name. I've completely forgot. Who was expected to go to Virginia Tech from backup from Penn State. That's more the likely option. So that might leave Pribula looking for a home. Another name that you're
talking about Drew Grunkemeyer, who is leaving Penn State, potentially maybe going to follow his old coach, James Franklin, at Virginia Tech, where Bo Pribula now has a visit scheduled for Virginia Tech, where he also played for James Franklin and Georgia Tech as well. Pribula was a guy that UCF was after last year and didn't work out, went to Missouri. So, but to Cherico's point here, he is not yet scheduled a visit with UCF.
Ethan Grunkemeyer, excuse me. Completely. I was looking at my board.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, absolutely. Another name that I've heard recently brought up, this is on my hot board, Alonzo Barnett III, 3-star quarterback from James Madison. Had a spectacular highlight reel. Really fast, dual threat. He passed for 2,800 yards last season, 23 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, along with rushing for 589 yards and 15 touchdowns. That's 2 names for quarterback. I believe Colton Joseph still ranks among the top of the list for UCF in terms of who they want to bring in. He was a quarterback from Old Dominion, passed for 2,600 yards with 21 touchdowns last season. Also ran for 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns.
A couple of things to add in there really quick. I don't know how accurate this is. I messaged this person and asked them, saying that JMU quarterback, which would be Alonzo Barnett, visiting UCF tomorrow. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I've not seen that yet. But Andrew, that speaks to your point. But I also saw Colton Joseph taking a trip to Wisconsin, also planning a trip to Florida State. Again, UCF not on that list of places visiting. So whether or not UCF is purposely asking guys to be quiet about that, whether that's just not happening, we can only go off what we know. But Mackie 315 sharing that Barnett potentially visiting UCF tomorrow. Unconfirmed at this point, but that's at least what the chat is telling us.
I will work on getting confirmation for that. That's my next goal. If you guys see me looking off to the side. Yeah, so I think Pribula is another target with Ethan Grunkemeyer, potentially heading to Virginia Tech. Another name I have here, which was interesting that I've heard some buzz about, was I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm terrible with names, guys. This is not my expertise. Haas Hengy. Haney. Excuse me. You see, that's just representation. Haas Haney from Oklahoma State. He didn't play much at all. Highly recruited out of high school. Coach Frost may have had some conversations with him last season. Nothing really expanded on, as you know, he went to Oklahoma State, but talks could reopen. I do think UCF is looking for a guy who has experience, who is proven he can compete on a high level. And I think Alonzo Barnett would be a great addition if that is him. Another name is Anthony Calandria from UNLV. Played 14 games last season, completed 275 passes. Another dual threat quarterback, strong arm, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, rushed for 649 yards. So these are just names that are currently on the hot board.
All right, Trace. Who makes you excited, buddy? You've got the list of quarterback. I heard James Madison.
Excuse me, I don't mean to just
$2 million.
Me listing these names feels like I'm reading off like an attendance list. What he's done, like in high school, like who's present, who's not. I don't mean to be boring. I'm just throwing names at the wall, but These are guys
Adam,
who are great buzz
Andrew,
around and guys
you're
I've
talking
seen.
about a guy you expect to be QB1 here, right?
Yeah.
This is this bridge quarterback, right?
I think that's
If they
the
retain Cam
understanding. Yeah.
Fancher, if they retain Cam Fancher, where do you think Cam Fancher fits into the mix, Andrew?
I think okay. I made a feature piece on this, which got some buzz back in the community on the case for Cam Fancher and if he could start for next season. I do not think he will be the starter next season, but I do think he will be with the team pending his medical red shirt, which has some buzz behind it, getting approved. I do think he'll be back, and I do think he'll be valuable competition for quarterback one and making sure the guy's ready to go out there, but be a really solid quarterback too, who knows the system in his second year, knows how to run, is a dual threat quarterback, has been with the team, knows Coach Frost what he wants out of him, has some starts under his belt. I do think he's a good backup quarterback.
Yeah. So you need a QB1, right?
Yeah, he's not. God, if any of you saw my tweet, it was the case for Cam Fancher and why he could start. Not saying he did. If you read the article, it's not saying that Cam Fancher will be the starter, but more in the sense of this is a quarterback on the team who will provide valuable competition heading into camp. I think it's. I brought it up. It was worth mentioning. Cam Fancher was looked at as quarterback 3 entering spring camp, and he was announced the #1 starter to begin the season. Beat out Taven and Jakari. Everybody thought Taven had the job on lock just because he was the name that they brought into the transfer portal. We know Coach Frost doesn't want to operate just using name, but more production from what he's seen. So that's why I made that case.
Well, Trace, what would you prefer? So let's take 2 of these names really quickly. Alonzo Barnett just took James Madison to the playoff. Was recruited by Kirk Cignetti, who's doing a pretty good job of recruiting quarterbacks these days. Obviously has a ton of playing experience, just not at a P4 level. Then you have a Haas Haney, who has been injured, hasn't played a ton his 2 years in college football, but has an athletic build. I think I've heard people kind of refer to him as like a JRP-esque kind of quarterback. You just haven't seen him play because he hasn't been healthy. Which of those 2 are you comfortable going for? A group of 5 guy, air quotes, and Barnett that has played at a high level and been in the playoff, or do you want UCF to roll the dice on potential guys like a Haas Haney who hasn't had a ton of opportunity to see the field yet?
I think you spoke to it earlier that the philosophy within UCF may be proven stats and what you've done. I'd rather have some proven track record rather than a potential. This is Andrew said at the outset, is this the most important transfer portal class? There's got to be improvement and fairly significant improvement from 5 and 7. Can you do that rolling the dice on a quarterback? I think you need someone with a proven track record.
I want to add on to that. I think getting a guy with a proven track record, you don't want a guy who, in my opinion, this is how I'm looking at it, a guy who was 5 stars, highly ranked 4-star coming out of high school, hasn't got an opportunity to shine yet. That's a real roll of the dice. You get some guys that are good from that. You get some guys that are bad. I want a guy who is going to bring production immediately, a guy who can get on the field and no fuss about, he's not having enough effort in practice or he's not looking like the guy or anything among that, because you want to make sure the guy that you get in this transfer portal cycle, which I'm claiming to be the most important cycle in UCF history
ever.
You own that take. Yes, you own that take.
Is you want to make sure he's the guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If Coach Frost wants to have a positive record in 2026, it will be with this quarterback addition. He needs to make sure he's banking on the right guy. And whoever they bring in, you just have to trust. They've done extensive research. He fits the system. He's going to be a dual threat. He's going to have him roll out. I think that was a problem with Taven last season. I don't think he was as mobile as maybe some of the staff may have expected. I think that's a big part of why Cam Fancher got the nod in the beginning. Those are the things you expect. I think you expect accuracy. Do I expect a strong arm? No, I don't. I think accuracy and athleticism on the outside, being able to scramble to the outside, is what Coach Frost is looking for. And I think Barnett brings that. And I think Barnett has a very strong arm as well. So it stars a line for that. And if I can get word and confirm those reports of him visiting, then I think that's massive for UCF.
Well, okay, you got a couple more minutes left.
And he was on my hot board.
He was on your hot board. Well, Trey said earlier.
I was there. I was there before it was mentioned.
whoever it's going to be at quarterback, you need someone to block for him, and you need people to make plays around him. Andrew, any other names that you're hearing potential as visitors, as targets to UCF? Obviously, new offensive line coach, AJ Blazek, new defensive backs coach, Will Johnson. They obviously had previous stops before their time at UCF. Are you hearing any other names out there in terms of offensive line or skill position players that UCF might be targeting?
Yeah, so I'm always honest about what I hear. I haven't heard anything yet among the players who previously coached at the previous schools, like Will Johnson, AJ Blazek. But if I can pull it up soon, if I can find it, I have it here. I have some North Dakota State transfers who UCF can possibly pursue. I think one of these guys stand out more than the other. It's which one is it? It's Jalen Duffy and Jaquise Alexander, both defensive backs, have transferred for North Dakota State. They were cornerback 1 and cornerback 2. Both of them they're both around the 5'10", 5'11" range. And I think Will Johnson, I think that familiarity with the system, I think is important when building a defense. Trace mentioned Coach Grinch did a fantastic job with the defense last season when he put it together. But, if you're changing out a lot of the major pieces that you had in the past year and just think you can substitute them in, those aren't guarantees. That's never a guarantee that you're going to just automatically find another system fit just because the coach did a great job the last season. I do think that Alex Grinch proved that he's still among the best defensive coordinators in college football. And I do think UCF's defense was evident of that with the performance that they had last year. It's rare that you ever say playing UCF football, we're going to look at their defense as the highlight of the team, but that's what it was last season. So I think building on guys with chemistry and building players who have familiar backgrounds with the Knights are important. Another guy I have from North Dakota State here is Toby Aneen. He had 7 sacks last season. I think it was a strong year. Those are just a few of the players I have. And then I have some more people on my hot board. A lot of the people I have named on my hot board have connections to the Orlando area, like I mentioned, or have had visits prior with UCF. A bunch of guys from Orlando. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Here's one on screen. Christian Hudson, local kid at Colorado, now in the portal.
That was somebody, I hate to keep referencing it, but that's somebody that I had on my hot board 1.0. And
there's a 2.0 already as well?
There is a 2.0. There was a 2.0 flip in the next within the span of 2 days. December 31st, 1.0 was out. January 2nd, January 1st, 2.0 was out. More names entering the portal, more people UCF can go after. Christian Hudson is a guy that makes a lot of sense. Initially committed to UCF, flipped to Colorado, now back in the portal, could be looking for a home. And with UCF needing some D-line depth, I think him, a local hometown kid, could be a guy UCF goes after. Another one that I had heard was another one that I was very, very interested in. And I thought this made some sense. I haven't heard any scoop on this. Was Preston Zachman, a safety from Wisconsin. He was with AJ Blazek the past 2 seasons. And then under Alex Grinch, he was there for his best season when he was injured last year. Zachman was injured last year. You guys ready for this? 7 years of eligibility. He just got granted his 7th season of eligibility. Recorded 58 tackles in 2024, 4 pass deflections. Those are 2 coaches that he's had ties with previously. Alex Grinch, AJ Blazek. That could be enough to bring him over, but that's all speculation. It's me going through a list of 2,000 kids practically and seeing who has certain ties to UCF and trying to make the best research that I can and texting people around the community. Those are a few names that I have here. Yeah, that's about what
Andrew, are all, and I know there's a short time frame. Is it fair to assume that not everyone will actually take a visit to UCF? I know it's kind of been a thing over the last couple of seasons where the time period's so short. Do you expect all these potential guys to actually step on campus, or do you think there may be some guys that UCF recruits and never actually take official visits, but UCF tries to go after and sign without ever stepping on campus?
I think the ideal thing that UCF wants is to step on campus, give them a tour around, let them meet coaches, have fun, experience the Orlando community. But then again, we're in a new era where maybe a player all the way in California says, I'm not making a trip out there, but they're my highest bidder. And I have a connection with the old coach, so that might be the school I want to go to. And when I'm going there to sign is when I'll go get my visit in. I do think it's a mix. I still think the ideal situation is going for a visit and seeing if you're a right fit. Because I think what Coach Frost spoke about, and we spoke about with a lot of players, was when Coach Frost navigated the transfer portal last year, they said it wasn't all glamorous and fancy, and it was take pictures here, take pictures there. They said they were interviewed basically by Coach Frost and their staff. I think it's important because I think he had a very straight demeanor with, hey, like, we want to make sure you're a fit for this team. We're not going to try to gloat you up or make you feel like you're the best player in the world. We want to see if you're okay with being a system fit, being in the culture. And I think that's kind of the approach that Coach Frost is taking in sense of trying to fill out this roster. He wants to speak with these people. He wants to build a strong culture. I think we can see it with Indiana. Building a culture is among the most important things. I know culture, I should say, is played out of building a strong team culture and everybody cares for each other, because what really matters is you get on the field, wins and losses, but if the team can stick together through a loss, that's important. I think you see with Indiana, they didn't have the most talented guys the past couple of seasons, and they all were able to put it together. So I think Coach Frost is very tunnel vision. Let me get an interview with him. Let me see if he's a good fit. Speak with my assistant coaches. Make sure he's a good fit.
No more fancy cars on the 50-yard line. Is that what that means?
We didn't see any of it last season. We didn't see any of it last season.
Adam, when did the Sons of UCF start? Was it about 7 years ago?
2018? Yeah, I believe that's about right. Yeah,
7 years ago.
Got a happy New Year's from Matt Dillon here. All right, try to go through some questions here. Matt McGeehan, is Taron Dickens someone UCF has looked at? I've obviously heard his name, the quarterback from Western Carolina. I don't have any intel that he's deep in UCF's plans. Andrew, anything on Taron Dickens?
He made my hot board one play. Is
there a limit to the number that goes on hot board? Do you have like a cap, or how's that work?
I think we're gonna go 3. I think we're gonna get 3. I'm gonna get another one in the next 3 days, including people visiting UCF. That will be the most narrow one in terms of people who I have confirmation making visits, people who have been linked to UCF. But I had him on my hot board 1.0. I think he had an impressive year. I don't think he fit what UCF is exactly looking for, experience-wise or play style. But I do think he's still a very talented quarterback. I think he'll find a home somewhere else.
Next question, Dolly's asking where Taven and Jacurri end up. Per Pete Nakos, Jacurri Brown scheduling visits to Rice, Liberty, FIU, Missouri State, and Tulsa. Any news, Trace, Andrew, on Kozlowski getting a waiver? Has anybody heard anything that's tied to the Patterson versus NCAA case? I haven't heard anything. Anybody else? Any updates on waivers?
I haven't heard anything. I want to do some more digging on that. For Taven Jackson's situation, stay updated with myself. I'm close with Taven Jackson's team, so I'm hoping to bring you some updates on where his next possible destination will be.
Trace, Brendan Sorsby, reports are he may command $5 to $7 million in the transfer portal. Is Brendan Sorsby a $7 million quarterback?
I guess is he the one bound for Texas Tech? I guess we're going to find out. If that could be
for on 3, he's on his way there now. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy money. That's just crazy money for a college quarterback. Ridiculous money.
Trace, for you, is Jarris McIntyre being overlooked, leaving?
Is it brutal
being overlooked? I just think the timing. Everybody's replaceable. I just think the timing of Love and Jarris leaving is at this time right now is not ideal.
That's a lot on us.
Too much upheaval right there when you need those guys, and you can replace anybody, but you're not going to replace them here in this 2-week portal window.
All that's doing is putting another person's pile of papers on another desk. Trace,
I guess that there are 7 player personnel people.
Okay, can I play a game with Trace while we're on live?
I'd love to. Oh, this is perfect. Yes.
Trace, you've had some banter back and forth with me, some usage of terms on social media. One word in particular, brutal. Trace, of this portal cycle, what has been brutal for UCF?
Ooh.
I think it's an overused, overwrought word there. I've said that. I just think it's the numbers that a lot of these are guys that UCF has said do not fit into their plans. And I think we've talked about, not everybody is just chasing money. Some guys want playing time. Some people want to actually play the game of football and don't want to be buried on the depth chart. I just think it's the number of defensive guys. I would have preferred not to see Horace Lockett go in. I would have preferred not to see John Walker go in. But I'm stopping short of calling anybody brutal on a 5-7 team with 60-plus players that were new last year. I don't think any one of these losses is brutal. And I would add that I'm not particularly happy about some of the losses at the running back position. I don't understand why Stacey Gage doesn't return, what he thinks his value is. I would have liked to have seen what he could do and come back. So I don't consider any of it brutal. I just think there are some dents to your depth. It just means that you've got to do more work with still the strange resources that UCF has.
Yeah. I also wanted to add, we were talking about potential players from previous coaches' tenures. I mentioned Jaquise Alexander from North Dakota State, 5'10" cornerback. He is also from Tampa, Florida. So that also went into my research and put him on my hot board as one of UCF's plausible targets for Will Johnson and the defensive back room. Former coach and from Florida, I think that's a solid fit right there.
And real quick on Twitter, Defalk23, a guy who knows stuff, is also reporting that Alonzo Barnett will be visiting UCF tonight and or tomorrow. So potentially the JMU quarterback could be on campus if reports on all that stuff is
huge.
Andrew, is EJ Colson on one of your hot boards?
EJ Colson was on hot board 1.0. It was on.
He's fallen off. He's fallen off.
Hotboard 2.0 is an addition to Hotboard 1.0 with more specificity. I don't know if that's a word. I just make up things on the spot. What we're gonna go with is no, he's not. I think EJ is looking for another opportunity. I don't think he's what Coach Frost. I don't think that it's not the talent isn't there. I do think the experience is what Coach Frost is looking for, and EJ is still so fresh into this business of college football, which I'm calling it a business now because that's what it feels like. He's so fresh and fresh out of high school. He's played a couple starts, one start, if I'm not mistaken, against with UCF taken out because a fumble, then played in the last game. Then we know he transferred to Purdue, if I'm not, Purdue immediately after the game. Well, entered the transfer portal, then quickly.
I think you guys are still in the press conference when he announced his intention.
It was crazy fast. And then he went to Incarnate Word, which has produced a lot of great quarterbacks looking to start their career. I do not think EJ Colson is among the top targets. I've even heard buzz that EJ Colson was possibly hoping that UCF would reach out to him. I'm not sure. Can't confirm that, but I'm just throwing it out there that there hasn't been much communication between them.
Trace, I have something for you that maybe you'll say is brutal. If you remember earlier, our friend Mackie315 shared that Barnett was coming to visit UCF. That turns out to maybe be true. So perhaps this person knows something. Lewis Carter getting multiple higher offers. Trace, brutality on that one?
Yeah, that would start to get closer to the word brutal. Yeah, you'd hate to see him leave. Yeah, you don't want to lose everybody, right? I mean, especially on the defensive side of the ball where you were strong a season ago. But when you're going to be the best players. And by the way, this is a preview of coming attractions. This is what we're going to experience year in and year out. If you're really good, you're going to be sought after. And so there are these valuations. We've talked about that. I said on Around the Kingdom, it's maybe Sons of UCF Live, at some point, does UCF have to overpay in order to keep some guys? Or are they just going to stick to their formula and lose guys? Because you get outbid by guys. Lewis Carter, do you overpay whatever your valuation is of him? Do you overpay because you've got to keep him?
Well, I think we'll never know, right? We'll never know if they quote unquote overpaid, what the bracket for that player was, and what they ended up paying there as well. So we'll never know that. Trace, this one's for you too, by the way. MD Night 2016. Any thoughts on Xavier Townsend visiting Florida State, where Gus Malzahn is the offensive coordinator? If you don't recall, Xavier Townsend, 4 games into the 2024 season, opted out, got a red shirt, decided to transfer. Some rumors about his usage in the offense, I think, were floated at the time. Trace, Xavier Townsend heading back to Florida State to talk to Gus again. Your thoughts?
Hey, wherever these guys think they're the best fit, wherever they can get their dollars, good for them. I think it's funny. UCF North in Tallahassee, I think it's funny.
Andrew, what's next? So what's the timeline look like? I know Trace was kind of in jest earlier that I think folks thought they'd wake up at 7 a.m. and we'd have a whole new roster. Obviously, we don't have that, right? We have folks visiting. Where do you think a timeline is? When do you think we'll start seeing some signings, some names kind of come to fruition, kind of set the stage for the next couple of days for us?
I think realistically, as early as this weekend, the ball can get rolling. I'm not going to expect too much this weekend, but leading into next week, let's look at Monday through Friday next week. I think there's going to be a lot of changes on this roster, a lot of additions. I do think if Alonzo Barnett is the guy for UCF, if he's visiting, which I will go and do my best to confirm with sources, I would say you want to get him in the building and secure him. Lock the doors, bury the windows.
Well, because it's important to send a message to other players that you're serious about winning games in 2026. So you want to announce some of these signings. What do you expect those signings announcements to be looking like? We're talking about UCF-related graphics and things like that. At what point is UCF pushing some of this out?
From my experience, and this is just me speaking as somebody who's recently been in this field, it's going to be announced by major reporters, UCF reporters, first, and then UCF will eventually get around to making an official signage or official post on social media announcing that he is with the team. But I think with all the agents, everybody wants to get their name out. Everybody wants to be the new big guy signing with the new big school. So that's all going to be pushed out. As soon as that pen hits the paper, that's when it's going to be announced. As a matter of fact, as he clicks the pen to hit the paper, because they're going to have it on speed dial, ready for it to hit post when it happens.
Well, Andrew, don't we kind of need quarterback to be the first domino, so you kind of know how much money you have left to spend? I think we all understand that quarterback position is going to be the highest paid position on this team, right? So to figure out how much you have to spend on that, if you have to go, Trace earlier, do you go a little bit above maybe to get the guy you want? So whatever that dollar figure is, UCF has to lock in pretty early, because now you have to figure out how you fill out the roster with the rest. So do you expect quarterback to maybe be the first, if maybe one of the first few signings that UCF announces?
Yeah, I think it sets the tone. I think it's about letting college football know you're here. I think Coach Frost wants to get off to a strong start with the quarterback. That is the most important, in my opinion, the most important position on the field. I think it's infinitely harder to win a football game without a good quarterback than it is. No matter how you put it, championship teams have good quarterbacks, and that's name of the game. So I do think UCF wants to let it be known that they got their guy and let everybody else start to fill in. But I do think quarterback, it's hard not to think that they're not targeting QB first. They're not putting majority of their research, majority of their info into quarterback right now. And talking about the lead guys, including GM like Mosberger, and letting the assistant coaches kind of hash out the trenches, the playmakers. But you want Coach Frost, McKenzie, GM, everybody in that building, you want them in on who's the next quarterback of the program. Terry included.
Another question for you, Andrew. Jaden Gibson from Oklahoma, a local kid in the portal. There's some potential off-the-field stuff that are rumored with him. And any smoke, any interest between UCF and Jaden Gibson?
I haven't heard too much about that. Everybody that I've listed on my I've said it again. Andrew Cherico hot board counter.
I need a jingle. I need a jingle for the hot board next time.
I haven't heard too much on that. I have a couple guys from the local Orlando area. These are people I think we're going to find out more information on them as the weekend comes. A lot of these people are officially entering the portal now, and I think a lot of these are agent representatives who were maybe feeling out if they can get a little bit more from their previous school are finally deciding to go all in on the portal and announcing what schools they're visiting, when they're visiting, who they're talking with. I think we'll see all of that start to come to fruition recently.
Interesting conversation, guys, in the chat room. Curious your thoughts here. MD Knight started with QB will not be the highest paid position. He shares offensive tackle, DB, potentially defensive line. Our friend Mackie is in saying someone on offense will be highest paid. Trace, do you think quarterback will be highest paid, or do you think it's possible another position will end up being the highest paid position?
Well, it doesn't seem like UCF is apt to go into those higher tiers of quarterbacks. So I could see quarterback because of the nature of the position and UCF struggles, especially the last 2 seasons being amongst the highest paid. We're not going to get those sorts of things, the transparency to know, right? But I double down that I think they need to have strong lines, and there are only so many of those guys out there. So you're going to end up having to pay for those guys, right? So I could see the point there.
Andrew, let's pretend someone wakes up screaming in the middle of the night because they've heard about your hot board and they can't find it. Where can they go find this alleged hot board 2.0, hot board 3.0? Where can people find all the stuff you're working on right now?
I've had nightmares of my own hot board, Adam. You guys,
I almost want to ask a follow-up, but I won't do that.
You can find me, guys, on Latavius Murray's Nights 24/7. I'm constantly updating everybody on latest people visiting UCF, being scheduled to UCF, all the buzz around potential other targets around the UCF atmosphere, quarterback targets, everything else that you can think of for UCF recruiting. Big day tomorrow with 4-star wide receiver Tyron Horns anticipated to announce. I guess we'll see what he ends up doing. There's been a couple crystal balls about him on the 247 side as well. Overall, just a lot of the UCF insider information, hot board, scouting, visits, all of that good stuff can be found on Latavius Murray's Nights 24/7 for Andrew Cherica.
And then obviously Sons of UCF Trace will be back next week with the regular program schedule. Around the Kingdom will be back. Sons of UCF Live will be back as well. So we'll do our best to keep everybody updated here throughout.
We may need a Sons today to update where things are.
We're updating the update. Maybe when Andrew makes Hot Board 3.0, we'll get a Sons today with Andrew on his hot board. But look, it's been a lot of fun. This is an interesting time in college athletics. Obviously, we're all adjusting to this new era and how to talk about these things. So appreciate you, Andrew, for sharing your insights. Everyone out there in the audience for participating, listening, watching, giving comments. Hopefully you learned something, enjoyed this a little bit, and we appreciate you from watching. My only caveat: everybody be discerning with who and what you read these days. There's going to be a lot of misinformation out there. Just be discerning and don't assume everything you read is correct off the jump. There may be some things that are just floating around, so just everybody be careful out there.
I'm reading this comment section. I think I had to change up my terminology.
Okay. All right, Andrew Jericho. We'll read more of the comments. Trace and I will go do something else and something different. But we appreciate everyone for watching here on Sons of UCF special live edition. And we will talk to you all soon. Everybody go Knights.
Charge on.